welcome to Wake Up with Patti Katter. Come dive into today's episode, sponsored by the Patriotic Mermaid.
Hello, everybody. You're listening to and watching Wake Up with Patti Katter, and I'm your hostess, Patti Katter. Today, I have Rhonda on the show with us. It's Rhonda Britten. I'm very happy to have her on the show. You're all going to learn a lot from Rhonda. Without hesitation, I just want to go right into this interview because I don't want to waste a second of this time. So, Rhonda, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Patti. I so am grateful to be here.
Thank you. If you could just tell our listeners a little bit about where you're from. I love doing that at the beginning of the show so that our listeners can connect with you right away.
Well, I grew up in northern Minnesota and northern Michigan. So I've got 365 inches of snow every year growing up. And, I grew up in a little tiny town most of my life. I was born in upper Minnesota, and then we moved to upper Michigan where my parents were born and raised. And I grew up in a little tiny town, 2 restaurants, the Douglas Fancy House Hotel Buffet and Big Boy. We had no fast food, nothing. It's about 5,000 people in town. And, my class had like 97 people. And, my story is... Well, I'll just tell you about the worst day of my life. I'll just go right into it if you don't mind, Patti, because it really does talk a lot about where I'm from and who I am. And like I said, I grew up in a little tiny town in the Upper Peninsula, Michigan. So I'm a Youper. That's what they call us, Youpers. And, my father and mother were getting a divorce, and it was Father's Day. I was 14 years old. It was Father's Day. And like I said, we grew up in a little town. So, we have 3 girls. I'm the middle of 3 girls. You don't go out to eat. We got a pizza once in a while, but that's it. So my father was taking us out for brunch on Sunday on Father's Day. So this is a big deal. My mother made all my clothes for me, sewed all my clothes for me. So she made me a brand new white dress. And my sisters were fighting it out in our one bathroom. Our house was about 850 square feet. And, my dad walks in, come on. My mom's like, let's go. My sister's still fighting it out in the bathroom. And me and my dad and my mom start walking out. My sister's still in the bathroom fighting it out like sisters do. And as we are walking out, it starts drizzling. And my father says, let me get my coat from the car. Now, this coat was a tan Naugahyde leisure suit coat. And for those of you who were born during that time when the leisure suit was hot, my father in his polyester pants, his plaid shirt, and his coat looked hot. And my mother wore a beehive hairdo. Went to the beauty parlor every Friday, beehive hairdo, had her hair washed, combed, and curled in a beehive every Friday. And so my dad opens his trunk to get his coat out. And I notice instead of grabbing a coat, my father grabbed a gun, and he starts screaming at my mother, yelling at my mother, you made me do this, you made me do this. And he fires. And I start screaming, what are you doing, Dad? What are you doing? Stop, what are you doing? And he cocked the gun and he pointed it at me. And I absolutely 100% believed I was next. And he blinked, I blinked, he blinked, I blinked. And we were just like in a staring contest. And my mother, literally with her last breath, sees the gun in my face and screams, no, don't. And my father, realizing my mother's still alive, takes that bullet intended for me and shoots my mother a second time. And that second bullet goes through my mother's abdomen and out her back and lands in the car horn. And for the next 20 minutes, all I heard was, and then my father jumps to his knees, cocks the gun, jumps to his knees, puts the gun to his head and fires. So in a matter of 2 minutes, I was the sole witness of watching my father murder my mother and commit suicide in front of me. And, I don't know how other people would handle that, but this is what I did. I blame myself because I was the only one physically out there that could have stopped him. And I didn't do anything heroic, right? I didn't jump in front of the gun. I didn't grab the gun. I didn't kick my father in the shins, right? I didn't hit him over the head. I did nothing. And now my mother's dead. Now my father's dead, and I'm still standing. So I like to say that, in that moment, it's like I split into 2, right? The outside of me was fine. I'm fine. I'm a straight A student. I'm fine. I even went ice skating that night because every Sunday we would go ice skating, and I went ice skating because that's what you do. You just keep going. And I basically just pretended I was okay for the next 20 years. Right. But internally I felt like everything was my fault. You can't be happy if your mother dies in front of you and you did nothing. Happiness is off the table. You can't be happy. That's just goodbye happiness. And so by the time I hit college, again, in high school, I still kept my straight A's up, pretended I'm fine, little tiny town. By the way, nobody was like allowed to play with me. They just kind of started like, we're the weird family, right? Because nothing like this had ever happened in our small town before. They didn't know, they just really ostracized our family. My relatives never came over. Nobody came to feed us. Nobody came to help us. Zero. Like, my relatives had no idea how to deal with it. So they just ignored us. And so when I went away to college, to the University of Minnesota, I discovered alcohol. I hadn't done any drinking in high school, or I was, kept my perfect persona. And I started drinking in college, became an alcoholic. I got 3 DUIs, tried to kill myself 3 times over those 20 years. And it was really on that 3rd suicide attempt, Patti, that I realized I'm not good at killing myself, not skilled at it. And I have to figure out another way. Now, I do want to preface this by saying, during that whole time, alcohol, DUI, suicide attempts, I am I was a straight A student, right? Like, I did everything. Like, if you would have met me, it would have been at a workshop or in like a therapy session, right? Like, I did everything that everybody would do that was really committed to their growth and transformation. I read every book. I did everything possible. I did trauma work. I did shaman work. I did energy work. I did everything. And all of that was nice and good, right? It was good tools and it inspired me. But Patti, none of it changed me fundamentally about how I felt about myself. It didn't take away the shame and the guilt. It didn't take away the feeling that something is significantly wrong with me, somewhere inside of me. And so after that 3rd suicide attempt, I remember going back to my studio apartment and just, I remember just being like living alone in that little studio apartment and just being like, oh my God, I can't keep doing the things that I've done in the past. I'm not dying, which is what I would have preferred. And I'm alive. So I've got to figure this out. And I remember saying to myself, I just have to go back to kindergarten. And I got some gold stars. I got a calendar, and I started keeping track of anything that I did good. Like, I'm talking anything, like any moment of goodness, any time I did the quote unquote best thing, right thing. And at the end of the month, I had a calendar filled with gold stars. And so I started creating exercises for myself, because everything that I tried, again, not that wasn't helpful, but it didn't fundamentally change me. And that is really what's become Fearless Living today, Patti, is the exercises that I did for myself to change my own life. And then, of course, I kept building on it. And, I didn't, and I'll end with this, is, I didn't do any of that I didn't think any of it would impact anybody else. I was just trying to save my own life. And, I remember going to church one day, and a couple followed me out, and they're like, something's different about you. What are you doing? And I'm like, nothing. I'm not doing anything. Because, Patti, this is the other thing. I was ashamed that I had to create exercises for myself. I was ashamed that therapy didn't work. Excuse me. I was ashamed therapy didn't work. I thought something was, that only proved I was still screwed up. So I didn't tell anybody what I was doing. This was embarrassing. So this couple comes out like, what are you doing? And I'm like, nothing. They're like, what are you doing? And they kept on talking to me and asking me. And finally I said, well, I'm making up these exercises. They're like, give us one. And so I did. And then a week later at church, they go, oh my God, it's working. Do you have another? And I was like, what? That was my first moment, Patti, of realizing maybe this just isn't for me. Maybe it's not only for me. Maybe it's for others. Now, it took me many years to actually do it. But that was my first inclination that maybe my past wasn't just for me.
Mm-hmm. That is powerful. So I've had a lot of guests on the show, and I've never cried on the show until today. But your story is so powerful. And our listeners, myself even, everybody, we've all been through a lot, different things, definitely different levels of trauma. But it is true. I've found that if you use your trials and overcome those, you're helping other people. And that is how I kind of look at it too. But now, What would you say to somebody who might be out there listening, who they're struggling with something, pretty big? Because we do have, people who've lost a parent or parents, or loved ones to suicide. I think that's definitely a big one. And then obviously your situation's huge, but you're not alone. There's other people out there like you. And what would you tell them if they're just in that moment right now where they're struggling and they just need to figure things out? Because like you said, you can go through these therapies and you can go through all these things. And really, for me, I had to have my aha moment myself, and you had your aha moment. But you are a life coach. And so what would you tell people?
Well, the first thing that I would want to tell people, and I believe this is the fundamental thing that we need to actually change our lives. And before I even say that, the other thing that I would say is, our neurobiology, the way our brain works, the way our body works in these moments actually works against us. And what I mean by that is, the way that we conserve energy, and we're just energy machines, the way we conserve energy is that our neurobiology actually is trained and structured to actually look at the past for a solution to the present moment. So, because if we have a template from the past, then we're saving energy. If we have to think, if we have to stop and make a different decision than we have in the past, if we have to have a new thought, that actually takes energy. And so we're wired to save energy. So, when people start on this journey, on one hand, it's going to release energy that's been stuck and stuffed, right? So they're going to feel alive again. But the other thing is that it's going to take effort, and it takes a willingness, and I dare say a courage. But again, I don't think, I know I never felt courageous. I don't know if you did. I think when we're doing it, we don't feel courageous at all. We're just like trying to get our nails in, just crawl on the ground through, broken glass, right? Mm-hmm. So I think the thing is to recognize that you're not crazy for continuing to look in the past for a solution to the present. It's actually how you're wired. If you do not make choice, if you do not understand how you work, it'll automatically repeat itself, right? Mm-hmm. So one, that's just why you're wired. It's not crazy. You're not stupid. You're not lazy. You're not damaged, right? Again, unless you make choice. So choice is a really, really important word. But I want to add a different word that I was starting to talk about just a minute ago with choice, and that becomes compassion. So without compassion, choice can feel rigid, right? Being personally responsible can feel rigid. It can feel, being honest can feel mean, right? So I always tell my clients and my students that the first thing that we must give ourselves, the first thing, not just to everybody else, most of us are pretty good at doing that, but we are really mean and ruthless with ourselves, right? We're like, we could be better. What is your problem? Get over it. Just change your life. Why are you sitting there crying? Like we're ruthless with ourselves. And the compassion and seeing our own innocence. And when I say that to people who are in the middle of their trauma or in the middle of their pain, and I say you're innocent, two things happen. One is some people go, oh my God, I could be innocent. And the other person will say, no, Rhonda, you don't understand me. No, I'm not innocent. And then I say, okay. So I blame myself for 20 years for not kicking my father in the shins, grabbing the gun, or stepping in front of my mother. Should I continue to berate? Should I continue to blame? Should I continue to judge? Should I continue to feel guilty? Should I continue to carry the mantle of loser girl because you didn't save your mom? Patti, everybody says no. And I say, well, if I shouldn't carry the mantle, why do you get to? Why do you get to keep punishing yourself? And then I'd say, when is the punishment due? Like, when is the payment due for the punishment? When are you paid up? Because, I didn't get to be happy. And I berated myself for many, many, many years. And I realized, when is the payment due, Rhonda? When have you berated yourself enough? When have you cut your happiness short? When have you denied your purpose enough? When is the payment going to be due? So I just throw that out is, the first step is compassion and innocence. then we get to recognize that we do have choice about how we see ourselves and the situations we've been in and the events that happened around us. Again, I get that there's difficulty in doing that. I totally get that. And it's like, when are you willing to see your innocence? Like, when are you willing to give yourself the gift that you would give me, that you would give Patti, that you would give everyone else? And therefore, when is the payment due? How much do you have to suffer? How much do you have to berate yourself? How much in order to get paid up? When is the payment due? When is the debt paid? And those questions are critically important to your willingness to start giving yourself a fighting chance, to give yourself a breath of fresh air so that you can choose again, that you can see yourself differently. So was that helpful, Patti?
Yeah, it is. And I'm wondering, do you have a family now? Did you ever get married? Do you have any children?
I have 2 stepdaughters. I've been married. I am presently divorced. I've been in many long-term relationships. I have 2 stepdaughters. I was unable to have children on my own. I'm actually infertile, which was another painful part of my history in my 30s when I discovered that. So I became sober, got married, attempted to have children. I always wanted to be a mother. I wanted to have 6 kids, and unable to have kids. And then my husband and I started talking about, different things we could do. And then our marriage, of course, started falling apart. And then I always believed that I would get remarried and figure out a way to have kids, and, life happens, right? Mm-hmm. And I've just realized that all my students and my clients are my kids.
Mm-hmm. Now, I'm interested in your life coach classes. How do people find you? How do people sign up? What do you do in those classes?
Oh, I love that. Life coaching. Well, I am fanatical, as you probably guess. I'm fanatical about making sure people are loved and cared for, and that they are held while they are learning these skills and tools that are necessary in order to truly not only impact your own life, but also your family. People join the coaching program for lots of reasons. They join it to be a better parent. They join it to be a better leader. Some people want to become coaches professionally and want their own businesses, right? So we have a judge, we've had doctors. So many different types of ministers have joined our program in order to actually learn how to be more effective with their congregants, or with their patients. Or with the people in front of them at court. So what you can do is you can go to fearlessliving.org, and in there it says coaching, and you can click on become a coach, and that will actually take you to our life coach certification program page. That's a different website, lifecoachcertificationprogram.com, but again, everything can be found at fearlessliving.org. And go to fearlessliving.org, and those classes start twice a year. And what you do through those classes are 3 things. One, what we pride ourselves in is, one, you will be held like you've never been held before. We have support like nobody's business. 2, and you have your own mentor. It's basically more like an apprenticeship than a mentorship. Like, you are really apprenticed in the coaching path. And part of that is you work with real clients. A lot of coaching programs, most coaching programs out there do peer-to-peer coaching, which we believe is ineffective. You actually aren't coaching a real client.
Exactly.
So, right? So you got to learn to coach a real person, not somebody who knows the work like you do. You got to be completely doesn't know what fearless living is. And so we really train our mentors. They're the highest quality of our coaches. We have, certified fearless living coaches, advanced masters, and then they study a year to become a mentor. And then we teach you how to coach, as well as the proprietary method of fearless living. And I just want to say one thing about the how of coaching. Sadly, most coaching programs don't focus on the how, they focus on the content. And so I've had coaches, and one event in particular, I was at a party, a birthday party, and a coach came up to me and said, like, "Oh, Rhonda, blah, blah, blah. Can I ask you a question?" I said, "Sure." And they said, "Well, how do you get your clients to do their homework?" And I looked at her dead in the eye and said, "That's coaching." So most coaching programs, sadly, teach content. They actually don't teach you how to coach. And that is where our heart is the how of coaching. Because when you know how to coach, all the content you've ever learned, everything you've ever done in your life is now applicable and be able to be used in that skill of how to coach. So yeah, go to fearlessliving.org. You'll see the classes that I teach. You'll go under coaching and go become a coach and find out about that. There's a quiz on that page to help you decide if coaching is the right step for you. And of course we have, info calls and different things that you can find out more about it. But it's an incredible program. And we are called the Ivy League of Life Coach Training because we're the only coaching program in the world that actually has mentorship and actual supervision. There is no other coaching program that has that. They might have a mentorship, like go and meet with the mentor 3 times. We have it's a 9-month program and you meet with your mentor on a regular basis.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Now, what do you feel like one of your biggest accomplishments has been?
Being able to, I would say 3, I have 3 moments in my life where the trajectory of my life changed. One is getting sober. I've been sober for, like 32 years. And without getting sober, I definitely would not be here today. The second thing is forgiving my parents. Being able to forgive my parents. Again, I thought I forgave them that day. I was planning on being a minister when I was 14. So the day they died, our minister came over and I was like, no, I've forgiven them. I've forgiven my dad. Like, I really believed that. And on some level, I probably did. But then life happens and you have to forgive again and again and again, right? Forgiveness is an onion. And when I really did the work to actually really forgive them at a very deep level, I did a ceremony at a lake and I remember I was there all day. And I remember walking away from that ceremony, like turning from the lake towards my car. And Patti, I remember very distinctly feeling that these were the first steps that I was taking as myself. Until that moment, I'd been carrying my parents on my back, right? And then the third thing I would say is forgiving myself. Being able to see my own innocence. Being able to see my own innocence and forgive myself has allowed me to step forward and in all my imperfection and my humanity, to tell people my experience, to tell people what I've done, show them how fear works, explain to them that they're not crazy, that it's just fear. There's nothing wrong with them, it's just fear. And once you understand the mechanism of fear, you can actually transcend it. But that would have never happened if I hadn't forgiven myself, because I would have never felt worthy to do this work.
I think that's so true. I think oftentimes we hold on to things and we blame ourselves for situations that we really weren't the ones making those decisions, but you always think, what if, or, what if I had done this or that? I think that's normal.
I think we do that, Patti, because we want control, right? Like, so if I can blame myself for my parents dying, then I can say, see, I can make myself better and then have more control in the future. But that's a fallacy. That's a lie. But I think that's why we take on things that aren't our responsibility, because we're doing it from a sense of wanting to be in control and wanting to be able to control our lives, control the external world, control our environment, so we're doing it out of a desire to make a bigger impact, but you're taking responsibility for things that are not yours to be responsible for. It's
so
not your
true.
responsibility. Yeah.
So true. Do you have anything else that you'd like to share with our listeners today?
Yeah, well, I would love to. Am I able to give a free gift? I would love to.
Absolutely.
There's a class that I would love to give that you can start this journey, start really seeing how fear works, starting to see just the beginnings of this pathway that I've created. And it's an exercise called Stretch, Risk, or Die. And it's a very simple exercise. There's worksheets. It's just a 3 15-minute videos, super easy. And just go and just take it. You can find it at fearlessliving.org /risk, RISK, fearlessliving.org /risk, RISK. And the last thing that I would say, as you ask, is there anything else? I want to repeat what I said just a minute ago, is there is nothing wrong with you. It's just fear. You're not damaged. You're not a loser. You're not stupid. You're not lazy. You're not weak. None of those things. There's nothing wrong with you. It's just fear lying to you. And once I recognized what fear and how it works, my life changed.
Wow. Your story is so powerful. I'm sure that when all that was going on when you were 14 years old, you never even imagined you would be doing what you're doing today.
Never. I mean, I never thought, I remember, I just didn't believe that I had the right to do this. Right. And the fact that, again, it took forgiveness of myself and being willing to see my own innocence, that gave me permission to start saying, okay, maybe I can contribute to others. Maybe those people that were at church who asked me what I knew and it started working for them, maybe I need to follow that seed and that nurturing. I really felt Spirit saying to me, go here, Rhonda, do that. And whew, it was a journey, and I am beyond grateful. And I also believe that this was my destiny, right? Like, we all have our destinies, and, the worst moments in our life are seeds of our destiny. And if we can embrace those worst moments of our life, we can actually fulfill our destiny.
I just remember at the beginning of the show, you had mentioned that you thought that you might be a minister when you grow up.
Right.
And I'm thinking, well, here you go. In a way you are.
Ministerial school at one point, and I had some conflicts in my schedule because I was speaking and doing that stuff. And the head minister looked at me and goes, "What are you doing here? You don't need go do your work. You don't have to stay in ministerial school." And I was like, "Really?" And he's like, "Go." Yes, I am a minister at heart.
Oh, Rhonda, it has been so amazing to have you on the show, and you really touched my heart. I know you're going to touch everybody's hearts who listen to this and who is watching this. And we're going to share your links that will be on the video right on the screen here. And it'll be in our podcast notes and all over our social media. So thank you so much for joining us and for sharing your amazing story. And if you're out there watching, definitely check out Rhonda's website, because I think that she can truly help everybody at every level. So thank you, Rhonda.
You, Patti, be fearless.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Wake Up with Patti Katter.
Thank you.
Thanks for all that you do.
Sponsored by the Patriotic Mermaid. We hope you enjoyed today's episode.
I love the show, guys. You're awesome.
For more information and updates, check out www.pattikatter.com or thepatrioticmermaid.com. Also, make sure to drop us a follow on Instagram at Wake Up with Patti Katter and at The Patriotic Mermaid. Don't forget to subscribe to the show on all major podcast platforms. Until next time, take care.